just think we ought to tee up Monday Night Football in the context of what we saw from Arsenal last night. What did we see from Arsenal last night?
They were fantastic. I think it's the best they've looked. I think I was going back through the fixtures actually. I think probably since they played Spurs away and they won 4-1. They looked really good. I think they were helped a little bit, weren't they, by Fulham? I think there was a virus going through the camp, but yet they looked energetic. I mean, tomorrow on the show, we'll obviously have a good look. We've got Thierry Henry on the show, so we'll have a real good look at Arsenal. But it was the goals. Obviously, was a big help in terms of goals scored, goal difference. But just the way they looked, that energy, didn't look fatigued, didn't look tired or nervous. But again, who knows if that was down to how poor Fulham were in the first half. We'll see that in these coming weeks. But it's certainly put a little bit now on Manchester City. They've got a tough game going to Everton. Won't be easy. You'd expect them to win, but it's not just about winning now. It's even about getting goals as well. So I'm sure that's going to come into the equation between now and the end of the season.
Do you think they'll win the second leg of the Champions League game, Cara?
Yeah, I think they'll get through. I think they're a better team than Atletico Madrid. I don't think Madrid are that good, if I'm being totally honest. I think even in the first leg, there was a 20-minute spell in the second half where either side of that, it looked like Arsenal for me were in big control of the game. I think the big thing Arsenal have done in the last couple of games that I'm going to look at tomorrow is the deployment of Rice going a little bit deeper. I think that's had a big impact. I thought he played well midweek in Europe away from home, showed real authority. I thought he was excellent in the first half against Fulham as well. I've been worried about the midfield. I think we've highlighted that a lot on Monday Night Football of like Zubimendi and Rice and how they're finding it tough. And there's just been a little change there in position in Madrid and personnel against Fulham with the young lad coming in, Mars Lewis-Skelly. So maybe something we'll analyse.
I think the confidence from yesterday, obviously Fulham didn't play well, but I think to go to Madrid and play as well as they did and do what they did, that would have given them, I think, big confidence to come back. Because there was an element of you thinking them going there, thinking they could get, I wouldn't say they was going to get done over, but Simeone can almost like suffocate you and make it horrible for you and sort of go and get a 2-0 win. Get a goal in the first half, be horrible and then get an horrible late. There's an element of thinking they were going to get played a little bit or they were going to be a little bit immature there. That was my fear going into that game. Would they be immature in that stadium? And they weren't. They really stood up in that stadium. And then Saka coming back as well, obviously, it was a massive thing. So I think that takes them into a good place.
Can I just ask you very quickly, because I'm fascinated by this, when do players start in a situation like this, start thinking really about goal difference? I remember there was the Brendan Rodgers team, wasn't there, in that game at Crystal Palace when they were 3-0 up and all that, and there was the accusation they went chasing the goals. Well, I don't know if it's true or not. No,
but Liverpool had to because of the situation. It wasn't what that meant Liverpool doing that. It meant, I think it was something to do with Man City's next game, would make them have to win rather than draw. So they did have to go for the goals, to be honest, in that situation. But what I would say is it was interesting what Mikel Arteta did at half-time, because that was looking at half-time like it could be a 5 or 6-0 job. And if that would have been the case, I'm not sure City would have ever been able to get that back. They'd have had to almost hope Arsenal draw a game to win the league. And he took Saka off, thinking about midweek. And listen, he's just come back from injury. They can't afford him to be injured. But it was just interesting because I think Man City, if you'd have said to them at half-time, this game's going to finish 3-0, they'd have been absolutely over the moon because, as I said, in that first half, it looked like it could be 5 or 6, and I think that would have been a mighty sort of big blow for City and something I don't think they've been able to get back.
That's why I asked the question, Gary, because I think that's a couple of Monday nights' time, and there's bound to be a narrative around that about Arsenal hitting them for 9, or whatever, which is disrespectful to Burnley, and I apologise, but you know what I
mean. I was watching the game last night, and I was a little bit disappointed is the wrong word, but Mikel Arteta, maybe at the end of the game, he'll be happy with the win. Of course he will, but I think there'll be an element of him thinking, we should have gone and scored an extra couple. Will we regret that? That will start to creep in, but he can't let it creep into his language to the players that much. But he has to remind them, saying things like, he won't be saying to them, improve your goal difference. He'll be saying to them, take your chances, be clinical, be ruthless. He'll be giving him those sorts of messages, I would imagine. And don't sit back. Make sure you carry on, keep on going, you know what I mean? Almost, so sometimes at 3-0 earlier in the season, you can relax and just manage a second half. They can't afford to do that. They've got to keep going. Pep wins by any tactic, doesn't he? By any way. So you have to think that Pep's going to win by goal difference, and we can't be done that way. It's that type of thing, really.
So just finally, in that context and all that context, last question: tomorrow's game, Everton-Manchester City.
I think City win. Look, it'd be absolutely stunning if City were to drop points on a Monday night tomorrow night at Everton. It'd be stunning. I don't think it'll happen, I don't think it'll happen. Do you?
No, I think City would win. Whether they'll get a few goals, obviously they're a tough nut to crack, with any David Moyes' team. But I was just wondering going into the game, it's a while since City have played, because he rested a lot of players, didn't he, in the FA Cup semi-final. Now, is that a good thing at this stage of the season? Do you lose a little bit of rhythm? I don't know. We'll probably talk about that as the game tomorrow. But, will we see Manchester City at their absolute best? Because, as I said, a lot of those players have, gone a while without a game.
You just sometimes need something. If you're Arsenal, you need something. Is it a red card? Is it you're something that sort of like just completely blows a game up from nowhere? And actually, the game I think it's a massive week, because I think the game that Arsenal are most likely to drop points in. I'm doing the game next Sunday. You'll be doing it as well, I'm sure. That's the game I fear most. West Ham.
Ticklish one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a horrible. I mean, I've got my own personal experience down at West Ham near the end of the season. So
Ludek McCloskey.
Yeah, I just think West Ham is something that they're fighting for their lives. They need points. So I think Arsenal's game next Sunday, they've just got to make sure they concentrate on that and just almost in some ways somehow pray that City can drop points tomorrow night. But I think it'll need a massive event of some kind for it to happen, like a peculiar happening, an early sending off or something of that ilk.
Lovely stuff. Lovely that you two are still...
It's the best they've played for a little while. I've seen quite a few of their games lately. That first half was as good as Arsenal have been. Gyökeres looked a top striker. He really did. Having Saka back is huge. Lewis Skelly was immense coming into that midfield. It certainly helps if you've got Declan Rice alongside you. They don't concede a goal. Couldn't have gone better. And 3-0, you could argue they could have pushed on in the second half, maybe try to get that numerical advantage over City with the goal difference or the goal scored or whatever. But apart from that, and they will know that City have got to go to Everton on Monday night, which is always a difficult game, and they can't afford to slip up now. It's a match play, isn't it? Basically, it's you've got to match what the other guy's doing to win the hole, and or beat what the other guy's doing to win the hole. Sorry, and that's where they are. City cannot afford to slip up on Monday night, so it's a lot of pressure for them.
Jack, Martin mentions Victor Gyökeres there. In the Sunday Telegraph, Sam Wallace, who was at the Emirates, says Saka return helps Arsenal rediscover their swagger. And for Gyökeres, it was a triumphant afternoon featuring a return to the team in the Premier League, having lost his place to Kai Havertz, and 2 first-half goals. For all the criticism that he's received since he's arrived at Arsenal, it's 21 goals now in all competitions. And in particular, the second half of the season, the goals are starting to go in. Are we seeing the player that Arsenal paid all that money for in the summer?
I think so, yeah. I think with Gyökeres there's an acceptance that he's maybe not always... He's not going to be the most easy on the eye centre-forward, right? And I think that when at the first half of the season, he did look a bit clunky, but I think people thought he slowed Arsenal down or didn't really offer enough in possession. But I think in the last few weeks he's proved that he can be a handful, he can score goals, he can make life difficult for defenders. People have been saying for years, haven't they, Arsenal needed... What they really need is a good old-fashioned number 9, and they've got one. And I think finally they're starting to see a bit of upside for all that money that they spent. I think that... I think there's a bit of a gap between the attacking options that Arsenal have and that Manchester City have. I think that's clear. But I think that the combination of players they have, and if they have, for example, Saka playing as well as he did yesterday, that was probably Saka's best performance this season. I think they have got enough different ways of scoring goals, particularly with Gyökeres being a mischief up front, being a nuisance for defenders. So I think that I think that will stand them in really good stead going into the last 3 Premier League games of the season.
Charlie, you were at the Emirates. Alison Rudd from the Sunday Times was at the Emirates as well. Her line in her piece is interesting. Arsenal consigned their infamous nerves to the dustbin to stretch their lead to 6 points over Manchester City and make sure as much as they can that they do not lose the title because of lack of goals scored. And in your paper, Simon Collins, who's done the piece for the Sun on Sunday, Mikel Arteta may end up being right all along, and the final part of Arsenal's title charge could be plenty of fun for Gunners fans. It's not something that we have been talking about before, because the noise around Arsenal has centred around the so-called nerves emanating at the Emirates. What did you detect yesterday? Did you detect something that was completely at odds to what we've been experiencing in the past few weeks?
Yeah, it was a bit of fun. You know, first 25 minutes, and fun is not a word I think any of us are really associated with Arsenal recently. It's nerves, as you've just said. But yeah, the crowds were able to relax, but of course they were able to, because, you know, Arsenal were in control from the start. They scored early on. Fulham were terrible. They were absolutely abysmal. They were the worst team, pretty much the worst team I've seen at the Emirates this season, which is obviously a huge surprise because they're going for Europe, having a brilliant season. And I thought it'd be a real test, a massive test for Arsenal yesterday, and it was anything but. And, you know, I agree with Martin, it was the best they've played for a while, you know, a long time, probably one of the best this season, but they were allowed to play well. But yeah, that will have helped, I think, the Arsenal fans. They're in a great position again. And, you know, with Gyökeres, yeah, he's untidy. Sometimes you could argue Arsenal are more pleasing with it on the eye when Havertz is there. But you know, the reason that Arsenal signed Gyökeres was that with Havertz and Gabriel Jesus, they were missing something. And you know, Gyökeres, you know, a couple of decent goals, brilliant play to set up Saka. And yeah, I think the last few months he settled in. I don't think we should understate the effect getting Sweden to the World Cup has had on him. Mm-hmm. You know, he scored a hat-trick to get them to the final, scored an 88th minute winner to get them to the World Cup. And he has looked, you know, sharper in the last few weeks. He's still had a couple of bad games where Arsenal fans have been...
Do you think maybe flicked a switch then for him?
I think to a degree. He's still had a couple of poor games where Arsenal fans have once again, you know, been moaning massively about him. But he's added something to the team. He's, you know, yesterday he helped win the game. You know, Everton a few weeks ago, although Max Dowman scored the second goal, which we all spoke about, it was an 89th minute winner effectively from Gyökeres, and he scored a penalty at Everton. So you know, he has made the difference in some matches for Arsenal.
I think as well that if Arsenal end up winning the league on goals scored, if Arsenal were even to win it on goal difference or whatever, if goals are a factor in you winning the league, then you can't really criticise the centre forward, because the centre forward will have been such a huge part of that. If you think of Manchester United losing the league title to Manchester City that time, well, you can almost directly attribute that to Cristiano Ronaldo not being there, because no team that Cristiano Ronaldo plays or ever loses on goals scored or goal difference or whatever, because he scores so many. So Gyökeres there, if they win it by that sort of margin, that very, very narrow margin where the points are the same and the goals are going to be the difference, well, he's above reproach, really. And, you know, I look at him sometimes against Atletico in the week. There was one moment where they broke away, and he's running, and it's like he's running through sand all of a sudden, and the Madrid guy just chases him down and takes it off him, and it's all very easy. And you're thinking, if that was Haaland, the physical challenge, the pace, everything would have been different. And yet, 21 goals in your first season in the Premier League. I know he's played in English football. The rest of English football is different to the Premier League. First season in the Premier League, 21 goals. It's very, very hard to make the case against him.
Do you think maybe, you know, psychologically what happened at Brighton and the fact that he wasn't able to make an impact? I know he played for Coventry and did well, but do you think it may be that there was a few scars there? Yeah,
without a doubt. He comes in and people go, oh, it's great, he comes in with something to prove. You know, it doesn't always work the same on everybody, does it? There's something to prove argument. You know, it could, and also at the start it didn't really click. I think he had that game against Leeds, didn't he? Where he made a big impact, but it wasn't really clicking. And people say, oh, it doesn't solve the problem. I've written it didn't. They haven't solved the problem. They still need a shot. You see Julian Alvarez in the week, and you're thinking, yeah, I can see why they want this guy. But at the same time, you think, this is a first season. If his second season's better than this, then that's a great season.
The other criticism, Jack, that I guess has been directed towards Gyökeres is